Hi, I hope everyone's doing well. Tonight I've got a little bit of information to share with everyone. I've got the Cannabis Health Index by Yui Bleshing, PhD, who is not a medical doctor, but he put together a compilation of a study of about 1,000 up-to-date publications and articles and scientific documents pertaining to cannabidiol and tetrahydrocannabinol and the other terpenes and compounds found in cannabis or marijuana. And this is a publication which you can subscribe to an e-zine with, which updates as you go along with the publication. So what I would like to do for you today is read out of this book here. I'll read The Evidence-Based Science of Medical Cannabis, the Endocannabinoid System. I'll talk briefly about the cannabinoid receptor chart. Then I'll discuss cannabidiol, CBD, sourced in cannabis on page 8. And then I'll discuss forms of cannabis, which is from page 26 of this book. And then I'll discuss page 62, which would be the evidence-based strain and form comparison considerations. And then what I would like to do is go ahead and show you some of the items that I bought today locally that contain cannabidiol or CBD. And I'll do a little experiment for you and basically just tell you how I feel after that brief experiment. So I'll probably also mention some of the terpenes that are found in marijuana or cannabis, depending upon what state you're in. And I'll go ahead and discuss those in depth or briefly. So to begin with, what I would like to do is read The Evidence-Based Science of Medical Cannabis, the Endocannabinoid System. First, I'd like to start with the publishing information. This is published by North Atlantic Books out of Berkeley, California. The ISBN is 978-1-58394-962-7. And it's published by Logos Publishing House, 2013. That's when it was first published. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and read out of this book briefly, or maybe in depth, and then do everything else that I discussed. So, first of all, the evidence-based science of medical cannabis, the endocannabinoid system, a brief introduction. All mammals have an endocannabinoid system, or ECS. The ECS is involved in many important functions, including initiating a host of physiological and psychological changes needed to adjust to ever-changing internal and external environments. This is true from the very beginning of life, when ECS, or the endocannabinoid system, signaling determines if a fertilized egg will implant in the uterine wall or not. Throughout our life, the ECS produces nurturing responses to injuries and inflammations. It is involved in protecting mechanisms against numerous cancers, neurological diseases, and nerve damage, and it may mitigate changes associated with aging. The scientific identification of the endocannabinoid system in 1999 is a relatively recent development that stemmed from research into the cannabis plant for which it was named. Since then, about 10 new studies have been published every month examining the impact of the ECS, its range, and its complexity. Presumably, this is a reflection of the excitement and hope that the early results have generated in the medical research community and among physicians, patients, and caregivers. The ECS is a biological regulatory mechanism that operates much like a lock and key. Understanding the ECS is a critical task if we are to more effectively manage diseases, especially chronic, debilitating diseases for which there is no orthodox cure. For instance, if properly activated, the ECS is capable of suppressing numerous cancers and may be protective against Alzheimer's disease. In addition to its preventative and protective mechanisms, the ECS balances and strengthens our nervous and immune system, initiates pain control, and calms inflammation. The ECS initiates neurogenesis, the production of new nerve cells, which is essential to recovery from brain damage and crucial to protecting nerve cells and enhancing memory function. The ECS increases our ability to try out new perspectives and experiences. When we try new things, we literally change our brain function for a better in a process called neuroplasticity. Evidence suggests that the ECS may be involved in generating subtle but therapeutic shifts in the ways we perceive the world, relate to our internal landscape, think and feel about ourselves, and interact with each other. The role of the ECS in neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, learning, and opening us to new experiences demonstrates connection between our frame of mind and the development of illness or expansion of health and well-being. For example, a frame of mind that frequently leads to guilt or shame produces significant negative changes that impact the body's ability to defend against pathogens. On the other hand, many cannabis-using patients notice the positive health effects of open-mindedness, creativity, humor, laughter, bliss, acceptance, tolerance, gratitude, and forgiveness, despite an often difficult healing process. These shifts in frame of mind can be induced by endocannabinoids, cannabinoids produced by the body itself, or by cannabinoids extracted from plants or synthesized in laboratory. Either way, the ECS can be activated to help us move beyond limiting ways of being and behaving based on past experiences. The ECS can be activated to support movement towards whatever can produce enhanced health and vitality now. Cannabinoids and their receptors. Large numbers of cannabinoid receptors are embedded in specific cell membranes throughout the human body. These receptors can be activated in three ways: by release of the body's own cannabinoids, for example, anandamide, through the introduction of plant-based cannabinoids such as cannabis, or through manufactured cannabinoids such as dronabinol. That was a new phrase for me. The two most common types of cannabinoid receptors are the CB1 and CB2 receptors. Scientists suspect that there are three more endocannabinoid receptors whose locations and functions will be more fully understood after more research. For the time being, these other receptors are referred to as non-CB1 and non-CB2. Alright, so on page, I guess, number 3, they've got a cannabinoid receptor chart, which shows all the human organs and listed out with which receptor it is. Either it's CB1 or CB2. And I'll read you the description for those. Endocannabinoid receptors influence, modulate, or regulate the function of each of these cells, tissues, glands, organs, and systems in which they are contained. CB1 receptors are located in the cells of the brain, CNS, spinal cord, cortical regions, as in the neocortex, piriform cortex, hippocampus and amygdala, cerebellum, brainstem, basal ganglia, globus pallidus, substantia nigra pars, and reticulata, olfactory bulb, thalamus, hypothalamus, or the endocrine brain link, and the pituitary. CB1 receptors are also located in the cells of the thyroid, the upper airways of mammals, the liver, the Kupffer cells or macrophage immune cells, hepatocytes, liver cells, hepatic stellate cells, fat storage cells, adrenal or endocrine glands, ovaries, gonads or endocrine glands, uterus, the myometrium, the testes, gonads, and endocrine glands, Leydig cells or sperm cells, as well as the prostate or the epithelial and smooth muscle cells. And CB1 and CB2 both together are receptors that are located in the cells of the eye, the retinal pigment of epithelial RPE cells, the heart, stomach, pancreas, digestive tract, and bone. Affinity of major cannabinoids on CB receptors. Anandamide binds relatively equally with CB1 and CB2. THC binds relatively equally with CB1 and CB2. Rather than creating a long list of organs, cells, and systems that contain cannabinoid receptors and the diseases they influence, I have generated the following charts to show 1. The specific cannabinoid receptors discovered to date, and 2. The list of chronic diseases for which cannabinoid therapy has shown promise. See the CBD Health Index chart on page 513. If cannabinoid receptors function as a lock, cannabinoids are the key. Scientific knowledge of cannabis and its most potent constituents and expanding exponentially, reflective of the far-reaching implications for human health and medicine. Excuse me, that was a little bit misread. Cannabis has repeatedly demonstrated profound therapeutic efficiency for multiple conditions, many of which you will find in the index. A search in the U.S. National Library of Medicine using the single keyword cannabinoids currently yields more than 15,000 studies. I'm going to take a brief pause here and then I'll come back and we'll take up back on page 4. Alright, I'd like to continue reading on page number 4. Worldwide, millions of patients rely on cannabis or cannabinoid prescriptions to maintain health and well-being and mitigate the assault of chronic degenerative illness or the terrible adverse effects of allopathic treatments such as chemotherapy. Hundreds of medical and scientific organizations support the use of medical marijuana, including Kaiser Permanente, the California Medical Association, and the American Nurses Association. Even the conservative American Medical Association now supports research on cannabis for medical use. This support from the medical community is hardly surprising, considering the level of frustration felt by a large number of physicians and healthcare providers who lack adequate and safe treatment options for the many chronic degenerative diseases listed in these pages. One of the plant's many astounding capabilities is that it simultaneously relaxes and stimulates the autonomic nervous system. Cannabinoids induce these changes by enhancing and balancing individual cellular function as well as that of a whole organism. This occurs in the mind as well as elsewhere in the body. Marijuana's constituents enhance left brain and right brain functioning, inducing the expanded state of consciousness that embraces logic and intuition, individuality in oneself, thought and feeling. To date, more than 111 cannabis-based cannabinoids have been isolated, and researchers are beginning to look at other plant constituents, such as terpenoids, and important cofactors to inducing therapeutic effects.